The restaurant had almost emptied by the time the rain stopped. Only one candle still burned near the window. And across from your soulmate, someone sat smiling. Not because they had fallen in love. Not because they had finally found the one. But because they had been waiting for this meeting for years. Your soulmate didn't know it yet. They thought it was just another dinner invitation. Just another ordinary evening. But before the dessert reached the table, one sentence would completely change the direction of their life. The person across from them slowly reached into a small envelope. Inside was an old photograph. A photograph of you. Your soulmate froze. Who is this? The stranger smiled. You don't know them yet. But one day, this person will become the most important human being in your entire life. Your soulmate laughed nervously. It sounded impossible. Ridiculous. How could a complete stranger know something like that? The waiter arrived. 2 cups of coffee. Silence. Then the stranger leaned forward. I didn't invite you here to introduce myself. I invited you here because I made a promise, and tonight I intend to keep it. Your soulmate's heartbeat quickened. Every instinct told them to leave. Yet something deeper. Something impossible to explain. Told them to stay. The stranger looked toward the rain-covered window. Have you ever noticed, they asked quietly, that some people appear in your life only after years of invisible preparation? Your soulmate didn't answer. The stranger continued. Every missed train. Every relationship that ended. Every city you almost moved to. Every unexpected delay. They were never random. Your soulmate smiled politely. I'm not sure I believe in fate. The stranger nodded. Neither did I, until I met someone who changed everything. Another silence. Then came the sentence your soulmate would remember forever. The person you're meant to spend your life with almost met you 3 different times. Your soulmate frowned. What do you mean? The first time. You were both children. You stood less than 50 feet apart. You never noticed each other. The second time. You walked through the same place on the same day. But one arrived 12 minutes too early. The other arrived 12 minutes too late. Your soulmate felt chills. The stranger gently slid the photograph across the table again. The third meeting. It hasn't happened yet. But it's closer than you think. Your soulmate stared at the picture. There was nothing extraordinary about it. Just an ordinary person. An ordinary smile. Yet somehow, they couldn't stop looking. The stranger whispered. One day you'll recognize those eyes immediately. And when you do, you'll understand why none of your previous relationships lasted. Outside. The rain stopped completely. The city lights reflected across the pavement like tiny stars. Your soulmate finally asked the question that had been burning inside them. How do you know all of this? The stranger smiled. Because years ago, someone showed me a photograph too. And everything they told me eventually came true. Your soulmate laughed. This feels impossible. I know. It felt impossible to me too. The stranger finished their coffee. There is one more thing you should know. The person in that photograph. They're living their own life right now. They have no idea you're sitting here. They have no idea that your paths are slowly moving toward each other. They're worrying about ordinary things. They're making plans. They're wondering if they'll ever find the right person. And somewhere, they're unknowingly becoming exactly the person you'll need when the time is right. Your soulmate looked down once more. The stranger stood. Wait. Who are you? The stranger smiled one last time. Someone whose job was never to become part of your future. My job was simply to make sure you didn't lose hope before you found each other. The stranger walked toward the exit. The bell above the restaurant door rang softly. Seconds later, they were gone. The waiter approached the table. Excuse me. The person you were having dinner with. They paid the bill before you even arrived. Your soulmate looked around. They left this. It was a folded note. Just one sentence. When you finally meet the owner of that photograph, don't tell them about tonight. Just smile. They'll feel like they've known you forever. Years later, when your soulmate finally met you, they didn't mention the restaurant. They didn't mention the stranger. They simply smiled. And for reasons neither of you could explain. It felt less like meeting for the first time. And more like finally remembering someone you'd been searching for all along. The smile lingered for only a second. But for your soulmate, that single second felt strangely familiar. Not because they recognized your face. Not because they remembered your name. But because something deep inside them whispered. There you are. Neither of you said those words aloud. Instead, you both exchanged the kind of awkward greeting strangers always do. Hi. Hi. Simple. Ordinary. Yet somehow, the air around you felt anything but ordinary. Your soulmate tried to ignore the strange feeling growing in their chest. They had promised themselves they would never trust mysterious predictions again. The dinner. The photograph. The stranger. It all sounded too unbelievable to be real. So they made a decision. They would never mention any of it. Not to you. Not to anyone. If destiny was real, it would have to prove itself without their help. Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. And something unusual began happening. Every time your soulmate needed encouragement, you somehow appeared. Not dramatically. Not magically. Just, naturally. One afternoon they dropped an important document outside a crowded train station. Without noticing, people walked past. The wind carried the papers across the sidewalk. Then someone bent down, collected every page, and quietly called out, "I think these are yours." It was you. Again. Another coincidence. Or so they thought. A few weeks later, They were having one of the hardest days of their life. Nothing had gone according to plan. A project had failed. A friendship had ended. They sat alone in a quiet cafe, wondering whether everything was falling apart. Then the chair across from them moved. "You don't mind if I sit here?" Every other table was occupied. Again. It was you. You didn't know they were having a difficult day. Yet somehow your conversation lasted nearly 3 hours. You laughed together. Shared stories. Disagreed about movies. Talked about childhood dreams. And when you finally stood to leave, your soulmate realized something surprising. For the first time in years, they had completely forgotten about their worries. That night, they opened an old drawer. Inside was the photograph from the mysterious dinner. They placed it beside a recent picture of you. Same smile. Same eyes. Same quiet warmth. Their hands trembled. The stranger had been right. But another question now haunted them. If someone knew this meeting would happen, what else had they known? The following morning, an unexpected package arrived at your soulmate's apartment. No return address. No postage. Just a plain brown envelope. Inside, a small leather notebook. The first page contained only one sentence. If you're reading this, you've already met them. Your soulmate froze. They turned the page. I knew you'd be curious. That's why I wrote everything down before this day arrived. Every page described moments that hadn't happened yet. At least, they thought they hadn't. One page read, "You'll both argue over something completely unimportant. Neither of you will remember what caused it. But you'll both remember who apologized first." Another page said, "They will unknowingly help heal a wound you never told anyone about." Another, "The day they cry in front of you. Don't try to solve everything. Just stay." Your soulmate couldn't breathe. How could someone predict details so personal? Then they reached the final page. Unlike the others, it wasn't finished. Only one sentence had been written. "The greatest test of your relationship will begin when." Nothing else. Blank. As though the writer had been interrupted. Or had deliberately stopped. Your soulmate searched every page again. Nothing. Only empty paper. That night, sleep refused to come. Questions circled endlessly. Who wrote this notebook? Why them? And why had everything happened exactly as described? The next evening, you invited your soulmate for a walk. Neither of you realized someone was watching from across the street. Not with bad intentions. Not to interfere. Only to observe. The figure smiled softly. They found each other, they whispered. Now comes the part no prediction can control. Because finding someone was never the hardest part. Keeping them. That was the real story. And somewhere, hidden inside that unfinished notebook, was a secret so unexpected, That even your soulmate wasn't ready to discover it yet. The unfinished sentence refused to leave your soulmate's mind. Every morning, they opened the notebook. Every night, they read the same blank page again. The greatest test of your relationship will begin when nothing. Just silence. But sometimes, silence carries more weight than words. Life, however, didn't stop. The weeks that followed became some of the happiest either of you had ever experienced. You discovered the little things. You learned how they always stirred their coffee without drinking it for several minutes. They learned how you smiled whenever you heard an old song from your childhood. You both laughed at jokes no one else understood. For the first time, neither of you felt like you had to pretend. It wasn't perfect. It was real. And somehow, that made it even more beautiful. One evening, while walking beneath a sky filled with stars, your soulmate asked a question that surprised even themselves. Do you ever feel like we've met before? You looked thoughtful. No. Then you smiled. But I do feel like I've been looking for someone exactly like you for a very long time. Your soulmate's heart skipped. Those words. Almost identical to something written in the notebook. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe not. Days later, an unexpected phone call interrupted everything. It came from an unknown number. Your soulmate almost ignored it. Almost. Something inside whispered. Answer. A calm voice spoke. I believe something belongs to you. What do you mean? Several years ago, someone left a small wooden box in my care. They told me to give it to you only after you met the person in the photograph. Your soulmate's blood ran cold. The photograph. No one should have known about it. Who are you? I think it's better if we meet. The meeting was arranged in a quiet library cafe on the edge of town. The person waiting wasn't mysterious. They looked ordinary. An elderly woman with kind eyes and silver hair. She placed a small wooden box on the table. I've been waiting a long time. You knew the stranger? The woman nodded. Very well. They believed some promises should outlive the people who make them. She gently pushed the box forward. But before you open it, answer one question honestly. Do you love them? Your soulmate didn't hesitate. Yes. The woman smiled with relief. Good. Then you've already unlocked the first part. She stood. There are no more instructions. No more meetings. My role ends here. Before leaving, she turned around one final time. They always said destiny opens doors. But love is the only thing that chooses whether to walk through them. Then she disappeared into the crowd. Your soulmate stared at the box for several minutes before opening it. Inside, there wasn't gold. There wasn't money. There wasn't another photograph. There was only a sealed letter. Across the front, written in elegant handwriting, were 6 words. Open only after your first disagreement. Your soulmate smiled. Well, that could be years. They carefully placed the letter back inside. What they didn't know was that life had already begun arranging the moment. A month later, a misunderstanding grew between you. It started with something unbelievably small. A forgotten promise. A missed message. An assumption neither of you intended. Neither of you shouted. Neither of you wanted to hurt the other. But for the first time, silence replaced laughter. Hours passed. Then a full day. Your soulmate walked into their room. Their eyes landed on the wooden box. Slowly, they opened it. The letter was still there. Their hands trembled as they broke the seal. Inside was only one page. It read, "If you're reading this, congratulations. Your relationship has finally become real. Every couple enjoys the easy days. Very few survive the ordinary misunderstandings. Right now, you believe the problem is today's argument. It isn't. The real danger is pride. Whoever reaches out first wins. Not because they're right, but because they value the relationship more than the argument. If you're still holding this letter after sunset, stop reading. Call them. Listen more than you speak. And whatever happens, don't let one difficult day convince you that you chose the wrong person. Some of the strongest love stories are not built by people who never argued. They're built by people who refuse to let one argument become the ending. Your soulmate lowered the letter. For several minutes, they simply stared ahead. Then they smiled, picked up the phone, and called you. You answered almost immediately. Before your soulmate could apologize, you quietly said, "I was just about to call you." Both of you laughed. Not because the misunderstanding had disappeared, but because neither of you wanted to lose what you had found. That night, the letter was returned to the box. Yet beneath it, your soulmate noticed something they had missed before. A false bottom. Very carefully, they lifted it. Hidden underneath was a tiny brass key. Attached to it, a tag bearing just 4 handwritten words. For the final truth.